Hi there! For those of you who don't have the slightest clue about what I will be talking today, let me explain it for you. RWBY is a web series made by Rooster Teeth, one of the biggest online content producers. If you want to know more about them and their work, you can always Google it. I'm not gonna waste any time with meaningless things. What I've noticed is that a lot of people are confused about RWBY being an actual anime or not. Well, let me answer that for you. Now, things get really confusing when it comes to this particular topic. First of all, RWBY is not an anime. Forget this lie that you've been telling yourself for so long. I wouldn't call it a cartoon either. The word that best describes what RWBY is, it's animation. Simple, right? RWBY is a fucking animation, guys. Well, it's clear that the show is heavily inspired by the classical anime narrative structure and graphic style. But there are a lot of Western cartoons that do the same. Best example? Avatar, The Last Airbender. We also have Stormhawk, Beast Wars, The Real Adventure of Johnny Quest. Are those anime? No, of course not, and neither is RWBY. Yes, we have characters without hair colors that somehow describe their personalities, specific physical traits and all the other anime stylistic aspects, but still, it's not enough to call RWBY an anime. It's just a web series inspired by its graphics and design. Anime equals Japanese animation. And please don't make me show you the definition from the Dex. Oh, I just did it. Yes, it is very true that the Japanese developed an unique form of aesthetics for anime. But it's not the aesthetics that define the anime convention. People continuously tend to confuse anime with a stylistic genre, when in fact it's nothing more than a regional specificity. Anime comes from animation. In the past it had been called Japanimation. It's just a word that describes animations that are made in Japan. Every single animation made in Japan it's a anime, regardless of it respecting or not the conventional anime aesthetics. So, I hope I made this clear. RWBY it's not a anime. It's odd for a web series to get this much attention. This shows us, once again, that the internet grows more and more and starts to compete on equal terms or even replace other mediums like the television. Even if the internet gets bigger and bigger by each day. What makes RWBY so special for it to get this much attention? A lot of you would say the animation. Well, I'm not that sure. Yes, it is true that one of the biggest attractions of the series lays in one aspect of the animation, but it's not the animation as a whole responsible for the show's charm. Sincerely speaking, the animation, especially in the first volume, it's not that great due to the low budget that they had at the time. In second volume things are starting to change, and then we have volume 3, when it's finally reaching a decent point. And yes, volumes, not seasons. I don't wanna hear you anymore saying seasons instead of volumes. Only now with the fourth volume we're proceeding to the second season, okay? Now let me get back to my initial point, the animation. It's not that good. The main attraction of the show are the fluidity of the movements and the fine scenes choreographies. From the first trailer we could already see all the passion and hard work that Monty invested in the making of the series. He worked hard at the choreography. Still, only this aspect doesn't make the animation as a whole a good one. It had some mistakes. This. And this. And this. Well, you get the idea. Now, I'm not trying to be mean, it's normal to find some mistakes judging by the fact that he had very little help. I just wanna highlight the fact that the animation is only decent, but nothing to impress with. As I already said, I'm not trying to be mean. I know that the animators put a lot of effort in making the show, but there are some details that I can't overlook. The animation, while it's decent, it's clearly rushed up to keep up with the schedule. And the impressive choreography has some disturbingly illogical moments. So to answer my own question, I think that what attracts a lot of people is the choreography of the fights that brings a dynamic air to the show. It is a very common webby style, we've seen it before on That Fantasy, one of the previous shows that Monty made. If I had to make a short synopsis of the show, it would be like this. 4 girls with superhuman abilities are going to a special school which purpose is to train young warriors into fighting monsters. This synopsis is so vague and simple because the story and the show itself are vague and simple. Don't get me wrong, it's true that the show draws some clear lines about what it does want to be, a fantasy trip with high schoolers and monsters approaching a anime wannabe style. But in the course of the 3 volumes the story kicks you in the nuts and makes you really confused about its development.
Like the mushroom?
Those are truffles.
Like the sprout?
Those are Brussels.
What I'm trying to say is that the show was so poorly developed and thinked at the beginning that the official synopsis contradicts with itself. The writers, Miles and Carrie, have no idea how to build a story that respects a standard narrative structure, it's continuous, without inconsistencies, and doesn't fuck itself up. The story in RWBY is dust in the best case scenario. It's horrible. If I have to talk about every single narrative mistake in the show, I wouldn't finish this review by the time of the Christmas. Instead, I will be mentioning only some things that bother me the most. The story is full of arcs that tell nothing. They don't move the story forward, they just show us how stupid the characters are. Example? Well, the entire Jean arc. Not Jean arc, his name. The Jean arc. But you get it. Yeah, we see Jean is such an adorable, hopeless idiot who finally starts to grow confident. But if you need 3 episodes in a 16 episode season, in which the story mostly do not progress, to develop a single character like that, it's clear that you have been skipping your screenwriting classes. I'm not saying that you shouldn't offer character development to your characters. On the contrary, this is one of the most important things that you should do. But when you offer this development, it should be in a series of events that are relevant to the story's main plot and move it forward. They could have developed Jean in a fight against Torchic, or they could have made a conflict between him and Carden in a mission related to him.
That would be bad.
Showing that this is somehow relevant to the story. This way the main narrative line would have progressed, and Jean would have got his character development at the same time. Instead they choose this poorly established story arc with Carden, which makes almost no sense, and you could see the final outcome of it from the beginning. I still want to talk about this topic more, but I will stop here. Another thing, a pretty big part of the characters are idiots, morons, retarded. They are not thinking how a normal person should be, and you can see this from the first minutes of the show. We have the introduction scene of Weiss. We can clearly see that she's shaking a bottle of dust in front of RWBY, when earlier she was accusing RWBY of being stupid for doing so. See? There is very little grey matter in the girl's head. Another significant thing is that the characters are contradicting themselves and they present some idiot motivations about which they seem to forget later in the show. An example in this case would be Blake, who had all the reasons to kill Roman, didn't do it, twice, for a reason that we will probably never understand. Alright, now, moving on. In the title of this video it says RWBY Volume 3 Review. Still, until now I've talked about the series in general, so let's talk about Volume 3. It came as an improvement for the show. Really. Surprisingly, it respected the basic narrative structure. Yes, it had minor flaws like pointless dialogue and retarded characters, but all in all it functioned as a story. Does that mean that RWBY is starting to become a good series? No, not at all. All the dramatic load that was poorly built up in the first 2 volumes, it finally paid off, and that's why this volume looks better. RWBY is as bad as it always was, even in the last volume. The people developed this false belief that if a story has a darker theme is automatically better. Hell no. A story with darker accents can be as bad as a lighter one. RWBY is the perfect example. Plus, didn't become darker. The dark themes were always there. Vale still has racist policies.
The filthy faunus from the boat!
And we had grim invasions in the second volume as well. They change a little bit the tone and the way that the characters act during this kind of events. They gave up the cheap comedy as they went till now and tried a more realistically receptive way. And I can't say that this is a good thing. Why? They confuse you. What's RWBY? A anime-based action and light comedy show? A drama? No one knows anymore. They should establish a main tone of the show and keep it that way. Otherwise it's confusing and it seems unreal. Maybe after 2 more volumes we'll see that RWBY became a fucking musical. Or hell's know what. And it wouldn't surprise me at all. Let's light up some good parts too. We had characters that died this season. Penny, Roman and Pyrrha. Even though some of the deaths were kinda forced, actually they were okay. I'm not gonna enter further in this subject. It may surprise you, but I kinda like RWBY. Really. I can have my guilty pleasures, right? Everybody likes a bad movie, anime or whatever else. I don't really know why I like it. It's relaxing, or I have mental issues. But I think that the general atmosphere does catch you. It's the kind of animation I would recommend to persons who are suffering from compulsive obsessive disorder. Maybe that's why RWBY has such a large fanbase. Maybe that's what bad writing stands for. I don't know. It's okay to like RWBY, but the idea is that you shouldn't let the funny and goofy tone of the show and the spectacular choreographies to fool you. The script is disastrous and the characters, if you ignore some retarded moments from them, are quite likable.
Oh, stop it.
One more thing that I don't really like about the writers. They lie to us that RWBY is the main character, and the funny thing is that they don't really try to pretend a little that it would be so. During these 3 volumes there was very little character development for her. Only in the first 3 episodes of volume 1 and in the last episode of volume 3. It's like we lost the character when Aspin said,
You have silver eyes.
and we got it back when this happened. And the silver eyes suddenly became relevant to the story. You bring into discussion an element that seems relevant, then you shove it in your ass for 3 volumes, and then you bring it back, out of nowhere, without putting it into an understandable context. We still don't know what RWBY is, and that's a bad thing. I'll end this review with some short conclusions of the 3rd volume's finale. I think that most of the characters that died this season will stay dead, with the only exception being Penny.
Sensational!
In her case, given the fact that she's not human, it's possible a comeback. I don't know. Maybe someone, most likely her father, will make a new body for her and put another aura in it. It worked once, why wouldn't it work again? It's not sure if we will get the same Penny back, but some kind of version of her it's most likely to. Penninator is coming, fellas. So, the rest of the characters should stay dead. But if I know Miles and Carrie, they'll do the opposite and bring someone back. That would be only for the fan service and nothing more. But for the story it would...
That would be bad.
You see, speaking from the narrative point of view, the death of a character is a very big thing to handle. You need to think it and approach it very carefully. When you build an entire setup that justifies the death of a character, Pyrrha's case, and after that you bring that character back, it's like kicking yourself in the balls and mock your audience at the same time. That would make half of volume 3 irrelevant. So, Pyrrha better stays dead. Yes, I know, it's hard for you to accept it. I liked her too. What gives me hope are a series of tweets from Jen Brown, Pyrrha's voice actor, in which she states that this was the end for her character. Another thing, RWBY is not a maiden, and not in the way that you birds are thinking. It's clear from Crow's explications that her powers draw from another legend. And think about it, Remnant is a world where legends and myths are created after more or less true stories. If the story of the 4th season is real, why wouldn't be another one real as well? The silver eyes are not a maiden characteristic, like I heard some fans. They are a completely different story. We find out that Crow is a crow, and I'm not being racist. He is literally a crow. About Salem there's not much to be said. She was introduced for the sake of a cliffhanger, and it's a bad one. To introduce a character of such amplitude without giving any explications about he or she means that you don't trust your story, and that's why you feel the need to put such a cliffhanger to keep your audience curious. This is only one of the dozen of cheap narrative tricks that RWBY uses. Thank you for watching. I'm new on YouTube, so if you like my review and want some more, you can subscribe to this channel. It helps me a lot and motivates me doing some more content. If you have anime, movie or TV series you want me to review, please let me know in the comment box below. Have a nice day.